I welcome you all here today and echo Rob's statements about Labor Day weekend and hoping we have a good experience. One of the things I was thinking about this morning in terms of Labor Day was the intense and exhausting labor that our unhoused neighbors have to do every day to maintain their lives. And so to honor them and their work, I want to share a poem from one of my favorite poets, Lucille Clifton, where she invites us. She says, "Won't you celebrate with me?" She says, "Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed." So welcome to the Coalition to End Homelessness, where we work all the time we can to make it possible for people to build a kind of life that honors their resilience and their capacities. So here at our meeting, one of the things we ask at the beginning is for us all to work under a few norms that help us move along well. And for being on Zoom, we ask people to stay muted when we're not speaking so we don't have background noise. And also if you're doing other things to put your video off for the time you're doing that, because it can be distracting, especially people who wave their hands a lot when they talk. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And then we have the chat, which many of you are familiar with, as a place where we are hopeful for people to put questions, comments, agenda items they might like in the future, events that are coming up. Use that space as a way to communicate with everyone. There's a lot of us on the call. Sometimes we have 60 people or so who eventually show up, so it's hard to have everyone have enough time to speak. And we also have community norms, so the sort of speak up and hold back norm for some of us who talk a lot and some of us who don't share our wisdom very much, to encourage that to happen, and also to lead with racial equity and be aware of our power dynamics as we work together in this setting. So with that, I heard from Sharon already from APRI that she's here today for the first time. But if others are here for the first time or returning after some time away, this is just a little moment for you to let us know you're here. If you're associated with a group, to identify that, and then you can put any additional information in the chat. So if you're new, just unmute yourself and let us know you're here.
Hi, I'm new. My name's Josh Lair. I'm with Ideal Option Medication Assisted Treatment Program. This is my first time joining the group.
Great. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks.
Look forward to having you here.
Hello, my name is Marjorie McCraney, and I'm also with APRI. And my first time joining the meeting, and I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Welcome, Margie. It's wonderful to have you here too. Well, I'll just add then, one thing I forgot to say is there's that raise hand icon that's on the Zoom program. So if you want to be recognized, do use that if you can, and Rob will hopefully see that. And if he doesn't see it very much, well, then wave your hand about. So Rob, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, and for anyone who, if you already introduced yourself, that's great. If you want to share your contact information, you can do that in the chat as well. And just as Rosemary said, we really do try to use the chat as a tool. It's something that we retain after every meeting. So it's our hope to use that as a community resource, and it is something that you can look back on the pchomeless.org website after each meeting to see what has taken place in the public portion of the chat. So Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know that it's a getaway day for a lot of people who are having a long weekend, so we appreciate you being here. So let's get started with the segment that we do every week to ask folks who are doing outreach and interacting with people who are houseless in our communities to offer some updates. What's new this week? What are some new needs that that maybe this larger group should hear about so that we can respond to them? And what has changed on the streets this week going into our long weekend? So I open the floor. Again, please just raise your hand or use the raise hand function on Zoom, and I'll call on you as we go along, and maybe we can share some information about what we're seeing on the streets. Has anybody been out there this week? I know you have. Jeffrey, I know you said you'd been busy and had, yeah, Monique's definitely been out there.
There's really nothing new though. I mean, you know, for me this week, everything's pretty much the same. You know, I've been out on 12th. I've been, you know, helping some veterans get some, you know, toiletries and things like that. Getting somebody in a hotel, but nothing really different this week.
Got it. Anyone else?
I'll give you just a little bit here on Beacon. We
Sure.
had an influx, which I anticipated because of the weather change. And so I think we had 4 people check in last night. But if the weather keeps right around that 40 degrees at night, we're going to see more and more people. And the fear is that I'm going to be at capacity very soon.
How close to capacity have you been so far, Mike?
I've been up to 30, I think it's 33. In the last 2 nights, I've been at 25 and 27, and I can go to 40. So, and with 40, it's going to be real tight. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I did find a new encampment. It's been kind of slowly building underneath the Thompson Street Bridge. Has anybody checked in on those people? And if not, I will probably meet up with them probably Tuesday. I don't know how big it is. I've seen probably 3 tents.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I did see mention by Richard Dorset in the chat about an individual. I know he's emailed me about a 46-year-old at 11th and Yakima who seems to be interested in services, housing, and work. So Richard, I will email you back contact. I don't know if the work piece, I don't know if Sherry's on the call. I'll connect you with Sherry Jensen from Vallejo on that piece. And if anybody is a caseworker who has the ability to get out to 11th and Yakima and talk to Kenneth, this might be an opportunity to do so. Thank you for that. And anyone else with something that they're seeing on the streets this week? All right. So if you do have something else, you can drop that in the chat as always. And let's move on to the new, oh, Timothy, did you have something? Okay. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the new segment that we've been doing here these last few weeks, and that is introducing new organizations to the community and allowing folks to have 5-minute updates to talk about how members of the coalition could connect with and support their organizations. So the first one that I have on the agenda this morning is the A. Philip Randolph Institute of Tacoma. And I have Sharilla listed as the person speaking, but Sharon, is that going to be you?
Yes, it will be me.
Okay, great. So take it away.
Great. I have a small presentation. If you can allow me to screen share.
I will. Just give me a moment here and I will do that. Why am I not? There you are. All right, you should have that ability now.
Okay, and bear with me. I am new at doing this too, so I will be bringing this forward. Just give me a moment. Okay, hold on. Oh, gosh, I have this. Give me a moment. I need to,
Karen, we've all been there. No worries.
Okay. I'm trying my best to, let's see, screen share. You guys are seeing my screen, right?
It's just coming up now. Yep, now you just got to bring it. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for bearing with me with that technology. I have A. Philip Randolph. It's A Philip Randolph Institute, and we're at the Tacoma chapter. And we are the senior contingency group of the AFL-CIO. Our founders are Asa Philip Randolph. He's a former head of the Brotherhood of the Sleeper Car Porters and the early Black Trade Union, and Bayard Rustin. They founded the APR to forge an alliance between the civil rights movement and the labor movement. Our A. Philip Randolph Institute is established and promoted to trade unionism in the Black community. There are 2 chapters in Washington, and it's in Seattle and Tacoma. And we are part of the national APRI organization. We have over 120 chapters across the US. Now, our mission here for our A. Philip Randolph Tacoma chapter is dedicated to developing our programs that will extend the democracy to those who have been traditionally disenfranchised or discouraged from participating in the political system. We continue to work to strengthen our political alliances, and we need to ensure the democratic social change and protecting social and economic programs, improving the lives of all Americans and supporting our community. In 2003, our nonprofit chapter of A. Philip Randolph Institute in Tacoma began in the city of Tacoma. And our funding just comes from our community partners and sponsors and our membership. Our work, oh my goodness, is wonderful. Our work at this time continued. We have an Elijah Food Barrel, which is a resource bank, and we're open on the 2nd and the 4th Saturdays at 4819 South 12th Street in Tacoma. Our program manager is Sharilla Blevins, who you all are quite knowing, and everyone is welcome. They don't need to have anything. You just come out there and get yourself a nice meal to start off. Now, we deliver hot meals and resources to several unhoused people within our Pierce County. We have a repurpose and reuse program, and our coordinator for that is Tanya Sitt. And her phone number is listed, and we'll be able to put that in the chat for you. We do voters registration and voters education events, and we provide information on the felons on their voting rights and their information. We support the movement and ongoing struggles for economic justice. We also do fighting for civil rights, strong and anti-discriminating measures, affirmative action, and diversity in the workplace. supporting the fight for decent minimum living standards for all. We are co-sponsored with the Legislation Day, a pre-legislating workshops that's held in Olympia on President's Day annually every year. And it's a day to educate and empower our community. We are a non-Protestant organization, and we do not endorse any candidate or platform, but we do educate about the process. And now, if you want to contact us, we have our website, and I will be able to put our website in the chat for you, and you can learn a little bit more about APRI Tacoma chapter. Are there any questions at this time?
So let's, if you could stop sharing your screen, I will,
Sure.
it'll show me everybody here.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, anybody with questions for Sharon?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's fine.
Teresa?
Hi, Sharon. Thank you for the work you're doing and your wonderful organization. Can you talk just a little more about the repurpose reuse program you have?
A repurpose reuse program. We're able to, we have a connection with Tanya delivers repurposed goods like sheets, blanket, pots, pan, clothing, women, men, children to different organizations that is in need. It's also participating like the Salvation Army, helping them out for the different needs of the Salvation family homes and those things like that. And if we have known of people that are being placed into the different housing that's needing sheets and blankets and stuff like that, you can contact us and we'll be able to get in touch with the personnel and help those that we're placing into different housing, those kind of items that they need for our daily economic use.
Very cool. So if an organization is interested in receiving any of those things like a shelter organization or something, would they just contact that number and is that the best way?
Yes, they contact that number, but if you see in our chairperson is Tanya's sick and she is on that line and she placed in chat her information.
Thank you, Sharon. So Maureen, I see your hand up.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Sharon. Perfect day for you to come. So one of the things the coalition tries to do is keep a contact list of different groups that go out to folks who help folks who are living unsheltered. So that if we have resources available or, like during the heat wave, things like that, we went out and the county will include volunteer outreach people in when they convene outreach people or they communicate. So is Tanya the right person or whomever, it can be more than one. I'll put my email in the chat and if you just let me know who should be added to that list. Nothing's expected of you. There's no vetting, nothing like that, but it's just, if you're going out, then it gives us a better picture of what the needs are to support you and also where the unserved encampments are.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We would like to help participate in that. And I believe, like I said, you can go on our website and you will find our information, but also Tanya's on the call with us and she's putting her information in the chat so you can add her to your services.
Super, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question for Sharon? Okay, well, we can use the chat for additional questions. And Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you'll be able to stay. And we do enjoy having Sharilla with us during the meeting. So thank you so much for letting us know about APRI Tacoma.
Thank you for the invite, and I will be on for a little bit longer. Thank you.
Fantastic. So our next small group introduction is a group called Operation Keep 'em Warm and Fed. And I'll invite Michael and Dottie to share information about your organization and efforts.
Well, thank you for the invitation, being here. Thank you, Teresa. And Operation Keep a Mormon Fed has been around since 1996. Started pretty much Michael going out and getting blankets to folks who were on the street, unsheltered. And it has morphed all these years to providing items from our home, and then also getting items to folks on the street. And Michael, why don't you talk about the items that you're getting out to folks now?
We started out with the blankets, tarps, sleeping bags on a nightly basis. And we usually use the time is when it starts to get really cold. We've been doing still more now because more encampments, getting the blankets, tarps, sometimes even tents, but they're rare. Then we started feeding people, and we found that was a good way of bridging a good cup of coffee in the morning with some oatmeal and sandwiches. And we ended up taking out colleges and high schools like Bellarmine has been with us for 15 years on the street on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we've had to change that because of COVID, not taking the children out with us. So now we're just going out, keeping our place, and then feeding people, and as well as looking for their needs. I do have one tool that's helps. Red Wing helps me with their second boots for the working poor. So sometimes I end up with some really nice boots that are good with hard, steel toes. And so a person can work on that. If you don't have those, people can't get a job on a job site. And right now there are some job sites out there where people could get jobs if they got the boots. So I do have those periodically, and so I can support other people that are doing the same thing. Right now we have this coming out of our home as well as we go on the street, and just trying to keep safe. So.
Fantastic. So I missed, what's the kind of geographical area that you've been doing work in?
Primarily downtown Tacoma.
Okay.
We worked all the way down in front of the old Nativity House for years, and then we just moved up wherever the camps went. Right now we're primarily in between 6th Avenue, the major camp right off of 6th and Yakima, all the way over to down here where we live, right in front of Guadalupe House, the encampment here, and the encampment's up here on 15th going down. So that's primarily what we've been. And then at nighttime, we go out looking for people that are sleeping that don't have something on them. So.
Great. So thank you for what you're doing. Teresa, I see you have your hand up.
I just want to applaud Michael and Dottie. They are my very next door neighbors and have been for a long time. And I watch people coming to their porch almost continuously. So whenever I describe my neighborhood, which has a lot of unsheltered and vehicles, it's their neighborhood too. So in the midst of that, they're doing this work. And some of you may have heard of Michael being called Sandwich Mike, because that's a lot of people who are on the street know him as Sandwich Mike. And he didn't introduce himself that way, so I want to make sure you make that connection. Anyway, wonderful work, and wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you for making that connection, because that was going to be my question. Because yeah, I knew of Michael, but I've never met you, but there's lots of word out of there about Sandwich Mike. Anybody else with questions or comments? All right. So Michael and Dottie, thank you so much for joining us and for all that you're doing in the community.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you all are doing.
Amen.
All right. So let's move on to our first larger item on the agenda. And this one, we're going to tag team a little bit. I'm going to ask Mike Boister, but I think Maureen will have some things to add in this conversation as well, to provide an update on the work that's continuing around Pierce County's comprehensive plan to end homelessness and the shelter plan work group. The shelter plan work group met last night or yesterday afternoon from 2 to 4:30ish. And I was a fly on the wall and putting too many things in chat during that meeting. But Mike, why don't you give us an update on where things are at?
Okay, so how much time do I have, Rob?
So I put 15 minutes on the agenda for this item, so we can be free to have some flexibility on time.
Okay. And Maureen always has input, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So first off, I want to say, hey, thank you for letting me kind of be the liaison from the coalition to this committee. I probably should have let Garrett have the other vote, but I have learned an awful lot, and it's helped me considerably. So I want to say thank you. One of the things I want to, well, maybe I'll put that at the end. So yesterday's meeting was very good, in my opinion. I was beginning to go into the meeting with doubt. That's a good word. Doubt in what we were doing. And so after the meeting, I was encouraged. Okay. We took about 30 minutes and had Ned Whitting. I'm not sure if many of you know who he is. Ned Whitting is one of the city council members at Puyallup. Ned's presentation was, for me, very thought-provoking, interesting with costs. He's a retired CEO, and his presentation, in my opinion, was pretty good. I kind of challenged some of the numbers, but it's always intriguing. Everybody has a little twist on different numbers. So, but I don't even want to say project, but what he presented was very good. And I think if you just kind of take the numbers out and his priority and so on and so forth, is right in line with the shelter group and the steering committee. Rob, I don't know if we have that presentation. He's made it a number of times, so that's public information. So we could probably put that out there if we have it. If not, I can do it after the meeting and put them all together.
I think I can, let me see if I can find a link to it and put it in the chat for folks.
Okay. So then we spent the rest of the time, and what, if you remember correctly, I think it's 2 weeks ago, I was reporting on where the shelter group had met off-site, and we put together a plan as far as the shelter group, and it's now the, what's it called? We've put it as adequate shelter for all plan. So it's really, we really did an in-depth, what do you want to say, just looking at everything that was going on out there, trying to get everything. Some of my frustration is everybody's doing something, but a lot of people don't know what everybody's doing. Okay. And so I'm going to go and just go through a few of these real quickly. One was, and we have that also, that document we could put out there if you want to. Well, we will put that document out there. We reviewed the access hub. This idea is basically if we have someone that's homeless, that's looking for a place to go, police department finds someone homeless, wants some place to go, we have this thought of an access hub. So that person can go, or the police department can drop that person off there. We can do all the paperwork. And then in that hub, we know of all the shelters that have space. And then we can, if they're open, we can transport them to that shelter. If they're not, we'll keep them at the hub until the morning, and we'll get them transported to that shelter that has a bed for them. It'll be just like a list of different shelters that would have, I'm sorry, that would have beds available, and we would know that. Okay, rather than saying, hey, go to Beacon, and when you get to Beacon, there's no bed. We want to kind of stop that, okay? The other one we talked about was shelter coordinated agencies. In other words, try to get all the agencies talking together. I think we do that extremely well here. The other, which I just quickly, I think Maureen, you sent out an article, or somebody did this morning, about storage. That was kind of high on our list because we've been hearing storage for an awful long time. So we thought about centralized storage, and that might be at the access hub, and so on and so forth. We would have station to and from that site if needed. The other thing that came up was laundry. Here at Beacon, we've been looking at, you know, a laundry, I call a laundry closet, washing machines and a dryer. Not many places have laundry capabilities. And the other thing is there's, I'm involved with a couple other things that are doing pickup of laundry. So we could probably do something like that. The other big thing was shower services. That's huge. I know that in Puyallup, our church had a number of showers and they used them all the time. And so trying to figure out where those locations and the showers are, that's part of that platform. And then the other one is enhanced connections to inpatient behavioral health. This is a huge one. This one is on our radar. We've also been able to see that the steering committee, this is huge on their radar as well, okay? So those are the elements that we spent an awful long time yesterday towards the end of the meeting. That's why we went over, because we all have the passion almost in different areas, but it was, for me, it was very encouraging to see where we're at as far as the shelter team, as well as the steering team. So I took from the last meeting and a couple other meetings is, and then I heard on, I'm confused on all the meetings I'm on. I had heard that, you know, the city council says, someone said, hey, we're not going to do November 1st, da, 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 da. And I'm saying, yeah, okay, whatever. And are we going to street November 1st? You know, I don't think so. I'm going to be candid, okay? But with seeing how between the shelter team and the steering team and how much has been moved, I'm encouraged. I'm still doubtful about more places to put people. And I think one of our comments out of the meeting was whoever has the purse strings, they're almost right now in control of how we move forward. So I'll put a pin there. We had a couple surveys that went out. You've seen that in the last couple of weeks. I've sent them out. There was a survey, I think it's called Open House or something like that. And that has created a lot of, how do I say that? A better scope of people that are, because on the other that Garrett asked us to do, James and I probably put most of the responses in from our guests. And so it was kind of skewed to the younger age group. Whereas this other one, this open house, you know, I'm seeing even the county council people are sending it out. So if you get a chance to go out and fill it out, that's where we're getting a lot of data. And there is correlation between that and what some of the youth, I mean, the younger people have done. So real quick, please watch my, I don't want to go over here. So the survey, I'm going to give you some real points here, or quick points. Around 40% use the shelters in the winter to escape the cold, where nearly 30% use shelters year round. That was intriguing, but not really, because we see the weather change for 20, I think it's 23 years now. Every time the fall comes, my numbers increase. That's pretty much a given. The most important criteria is selecting a shelter location, followed by cleanliness, reputation, and ease of entry. The other one's top reason shelters were liked was because of the location, safety, ease of getting to, and storage. Top ways shelters can be improved is with toilets and showers on site, food and transportation, and better daytime hours. Still trying to figure out better daytime hours if we're open 24/7. Nearly 50% identified shelters as needing 24-hour security, which was kind of a surprise to some of us. While 30% identified the need for case management staff, only 20% preferred self-managed model. Okay. So that was some of the key points out of the survey from that open house survey that people are sending in. We're going to keep that survey open. I think the word was indefinitely. Keep collecting the data. Okay. Between the other bullet point here I have is shelter model recommendations. Safe parking was right at the top. And again, if you take a look at the costs, if you look at the two, Ned Whitting and Garrett's information, it's pretty much based on cost. So self-parking, then we had self-encampments or safe encampments. Hotel-based was really kind of fallen to the bottom due to cost. Medical respite, and then young adult shelters. So I'm going to, I could go on. I got a lot of notes from
There are
yesterday.
some questions, Mike, in the chat.
Sorry.
That's okay. I can help with kind of queuing those up a little bit. So Teresa asked regarding the idea of the hub, if there's been discussion about how long people would be able to stay at the hub.
Well, the hub is, it's like a, what's a good way to say it? The hub is more like a entry point, okay? And the longest they would stay would be to that next morning until we could get them transported to site.
Teresa also asked noted that the supportive services sound great, but do we have a timeline for when there may be additional safe sites identified?
No, because that would have been a call-in question. Yeah, I can't answer that one.
Okay. Another question from Cynthia Stewart regards financial resources. So are there purse strings that can be open so that these things can be funded?
That would be on the county council, and there was, I missed it night before last in Frederickson, and they were talking about this stuff. Hans Zeiger is really pushing, at least in my district, trying to get money released. Okay, but I don't know.
Okay. Teresa, you have your hand up.
I just want to say that it's really important to me as a member of the coalition that we do actually all know that this is entirely possible to create enough safe sites for people before November 1st. I think it's fair to say it's a heavy lift, it's going to take a concerted effort, but it's hard for me to hear right now in September, I don't think we're going to make it. So as our representative, I ask you to push that and to say, no, it's not okay to spend the whole time talking about services. You've been given a task as a team to come up with safe sites, and we haven't seen them, and we need to push for them. We need them now, and we need them continuously to be developed. So yes, yes, we can. We absolutely can. Other cities have. We can. We need the will, and some of that's going to come from us pushing hard on the people with the purse strings. So it was hard for me to hear that, and I appreciate that you're representing us, but I really want that to be the voice that we speak with, because if we don't, who will?
Thanks,
I got it.
Teresa.
Thank you very much.
Colin, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have bad reception, so I'm going to keep my video off. I'd just like to say thanks, Mike. I heard him reference my name for something, so if I can answer that, let me know. I think the hub site model is exciting, that it's getting thrown around. I think when we look comprehensively at what we need to really humanely respond to individuals that are out there, the hub site is great. It's awesome, for all the reasons that Mike mentioned. But I do, kind of to Teresa's point, that is, I mean, ideally the hub site is not a place for people to stay. I mean, it can be a hybrid of that, possibly, but the hub site would not necessarily be a shelter model unless there was some shifting in that. And then I think to Teresa's point, I'm just curious if it comes down to purse strings, but really more than purse strings. As I've said before, it comes down to the genuine want to actually do this. And I think that appears to me to be lacking, because really what it comes down to is property. And if no one from the government entities or the involved groups, I don't expect the government entities to do everything, but the one thing that is the simplest and the easiest and the thing that they could do today, if they wanted to, is identify properties and say, here you go, use this property. Sure, the city's thrown up a couple properties, and that's great. County hasn't done anything as far as properties, as far as I know of, and they have probably more properties available than the city. So it's real simple. You know, if we want to do something, we need to start with the properties, and then we can kind of go from there.
So thank you for that, Colin. One thing I will add is I know there's a lot of information to absorb regarding this effort, both from the shelter side and the comprehensive plan to end homelessness side. The packet that I posted for the agenda for yesterday's meeting, on page 9 of that packet, there is a list of not actual sites, but a list of potential ideas for what communities could host different types of sites, how many people, what the sites could evolve into. So if you get a chance to look at that document, it's again on page 9 of the document, I think it's important to realize that the information that's listed there is not, again, site specific yet. So they haven't gotten to that level of detail, but there is work being done both on pricing out the different options and on thinking about where things could be distributed around the community or around the county to try to address the 2,300 people who are estimated to currently not be in any kind of shelter. So I just wanted to, excuse me, offer that. Any other comments or questions for Mike? Rosemary?
I'm not sure if this is for Mike or Maureen, but Mike, when you were talking about Hans Zeiger being really intent on finding money, I'm wondering where he would be looking, because the opportunity to raise the tax of 0.1% for housing as an ongoing a pot of money to be used is not something he's been supportive of. And I don't know what the ARPA money or the state money, or why isn't there some money? I thought we had some money. So I don't know. Again, that's maybe more to your work, Maureen. I'm not sure.
Maureen has dropped a number of things in the chat, but do you want to address that, Maureen?
There is money, but money being available and money being accepted by the Pierce County Council to as part of their budget are two different things. So part of that is procedural, and part of it is which pots of money are best used for which purpose. So that's a whole much longer conversation that I'm happy to have, but not this morning. I just want to add two things. One is from the steering committee, like Mike, it's an honor to represent the coalition. All right. So the steering committee has these 7 working groups. I am not sending drafts out to the 700 plus on the listserv because things change so fast. It doesn't help us to have old information recirculating. If you want information on something specific, come to a steering committee meeting on Wednesday at 3 or email me and I'll provide that for you. So I've gone on 2 of the steering committees to date. Jeffrey, I see your hand. Can I finish or do you need to interrupt me? Okay, thank you. So I've gone on 2 right now, and I can sit in on others over time and watch what they're doing. But the 2 that seem to me would make the most difference for the coalition were the one on prevention, because I was looking for the 2 places where housing is in this plan, since there's no longer a housing section. So I went for the 2 places where housing is, housing units, not just services. So one is prevention. And on that, we've got a small working group of steering committee members augmented by community partners like Lori Davenport and Rob and Adam Reichenberger and some other folks who bring particular expertise to the table. And on that prevention side, what we're talking about, what I'm pushing on your behalf, is we keep as many people housed as possible. And we rehouse people before they have to become homeless in order to get help. So that's a new piece that hasn't been part of our system here. So that's one. We're meeting every other week. We'll meet weekly if necessary. And we've got Valerie Almany with us for the rental assistance part. Lori is giving us the legal side, and Chiquetta's on the list as well. So, and Jennifer will be when she gets back into the office. But so that's one thing, is the prevention is, and we've never had prevention in this county. All right. Our first prevention on a county basis was the CARES rental assistance money. So if you start from 0 and to where we are now, it's absolutely pretty amazing. And not just on the county's part, but on the nonprofits that are actually handling the engagement with individuals, all that sort of stuff. So that's one thing. The other committee, so they took the existing homelessness response system and split it into 2. So the emergency part, the shelters, the outreach, that kind of stuff in one. I'm not on that. The other one is they're calling permanent housing interventions. And when they talk about interventions, they're really talking about 2 things: services and permanent supportive housing. I'm talking about a permanent housing unit that people can stay in, period. And so I'm trying to wrench that conversation towards permanent housing, period. And I think this emphasis on permanent supportive housing has been funding driven. And it's been the absence of having a real housing advocacy component countywide, for years. So anyway, Brian Schmidt, who manages the county's housing unit, is staff on that committee. And so there are 2 things I want you to think about. And I know I just blew the schedule timing. Okay, one, and I guess really one to think about. And it's Tiffany Spears' question. She's the senior planner for Lakewood, and she's also on the continuum of care. She's been on there for quite a while. And she's got a really unique housing background in that she was the Master Builders executive director for a number of years. So she gets the private side. I think she was a lobbyist for Pierce County for a while. So she gets these different pieces, and now she's within the city of Lakewood. But that is not a city that operates a homelessness response system. All right. So, and so she's in a unique position as being a county employee or a city government employee for the city of Lakewood with a commitment, but not with in firsthand engagement. So she provides a kind of a middle lens in there. And so her first question was, I'm paraphrasing her, but basically, does our current system of permanent housing interventions work? And it's merely a matter of expanding it. Or do we need to address that system itself? So if you put your thoughts in the chat, then I'll have them, because I think that's a really key question. I think a lot of what we see in our homelessness response system is funding driven. And it's part of what I think that Mike was talking about, the nobody knows what everybody's doing sort of stuff, because there are all these funding options, feeding programs that get created to fill gaps, and they're all good programs. But we end up with this sort of patchwork quilt that's got gaping holes in it if you don't fit the star over here or whatever, over there. So think about that, and then, and really seriously, because this isn't just our question. So we said at the beginning, the coalition said when we started this, we said we were going to use the Built for Zero model, which assumes that you'll still have people who experience homelessness, but they get out of it really fast, because from that first interaction, wherever it is, there is a permanent housing intervention that gets started. And so part of the problem with Built for Zero, I think, is that it works really easily in a soft housing market. It worked really easily in Tacoma in the 80s. It doesn't work in the kind of housing market we have. So that housing market, how we wrench that housing market into something that meets our needs, is going to be key to our ability to really ending homelessness going forward. So the other thing is that, and this was from Bree Williams, I don't particularly like this phrase, but it helps to organize it, I think, is talking about on the prevention one. She talks about big P, i.e. prevention, rental assistance, tenant rights, that sort of thing, and little p, all of the things that keep people housed because of the family support structures, the community, the neighborhood, the whatever they're already plugged into. And so that's, anyway, so thank you. Please email me. Thank you. Jeffrey, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, Jeffrey, go ahead. And you're muted right now.
I want to go back to start off by saying thank you, Mike and Maureen and James and all those who are in these meetings to try to ferret out everything that the government people think we need to ferret out, even though there's information out there already about what works and what doesn't. But I do agree with Colin that we're doing a lot of talking, but not a lot of doing. And we need more safe parking sites. We need some RV sites. We need places for tent encampments. Where are they? What is the city and the county doing to do that? We're doing a lot of talking. There's no doing. I have been down to the site where where the city is putting in the 70 plus tiny homes. And there's some wonderful property right across the street for tent encampments, but nobody's talked about this. Nobody has brought the other options to the table. I have not heard them, and I've been in all these meetings and I have not heard them. Please, let's get going so we can get this done by November 1st, because that's when the bad weather starts. And I don't have the money to buy a bunch of tarps and sleeping bags or tents. And I don't know if you do too. So let's get going.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And I will say regarding the 69th and Proctor site, they did look at that vacant property across the street, and in the conversations with the community, agreed they would just do the small micro shelters on that property that they're currently developing. But yeah, you're right. There needs to be more sites. There needs to be more low barrier sites, not just in Tacoma, but across the county. And I did drop the information from the 9th page of yesterday's agenda that shows some kind of what the early thinking is about a distribution of potential different types of sites around the county. So take a look at that if you have an opportunity. Maureen is right. We've completely blown up the agenda. So do others have other comments regarding this effort before we move on to a networking session? Okay, there's a lot to chew on there. I do hope that folks get an opportunity, especially to explore the agendas and documents that are listed on the county's website. And as you are going out and talking to community members, I really think that survey page that they've created is helpful because it does a good job framing the issue in a way that people will understand who don't do this kind of work all the time. So I urge you to take a look at that. So why don't we do our short breakout sessions? As we were talking through at the steering committee meeting a couple of days ago, what we should talk about during breakout sessions, we're really eager to try to move the effort forward around the November 1st deadline. But we're also realizing a lot of us are feeling it's been a heavy time. There's been a lot of stress. There's been weather issues that keep cropping up on everybody. COVID is not going away and seems to be ever present. And we're going into a long weekend. So we thought we should talk about something positive today as we do some networking. So we're going to go into small groups for about 10 minutes. And the question that I wanted everybody to kind of share beyond getting to know each other is to share where you're finding hope right now. Going into this long weekend, where are you finding hope? What are some good stories that we can share with each other for a few minutes before we go into the long weekend? So there's no assignment in this. We're just going to go talk to each other. And I'm going to put us in breakout rooms of roughly 5 folks. And like I said, we'll spend 10 minutes or so. So we'll be back here at 10:10. I hope everybody has a good conversation. Again, where are you finding hope right now? Well, welcome back, everyone. I do know we're behind time on our agenda and we have some items to get to still. So I hope that was a good conversation and some uplifting conversation as we go into the weekend. So let's do a very quick update before we get to the government updates. We wanted to address what the current status is for isolation and quarantine for individuals who are either diagnosed with COVID positive and who need somewhere to stay rather than going back to a shelter. I'm not sure what exactly who we can turn to here. I do have Colin and Jan on the agenda. Colin, or Tim, there we go.
Refer to Tim.
There you go, Tim. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. As Colin and Jen are aware, we've been working very diligently trying to get a isolation shelter up and running. There would be a temporary solution, and sadly that fell through. We have a request for proposal out right now in the health department to gain more capacity in our INQ services. we have to, due to being government, we have to jump through certain hoops to make something sustainable and actually to get funding. And thus we have to do these processes, and sadly they take a while. Next Thursday is slotted for this RFP to close, and we have got quite a lot of response already. So we're hopeful that we can sign, hopefully double the capacity that we have right now for isolation and quarantine. So our first priority is to get more capacity, because we've been hearing also from the shelters that there's a lack there, and that is identified. And then we can start closing the gaps within more specific requirements, as trying to get a more low entry, a barrier to entry locations in place, making sure that we have pet services, making sure that we can accommodate people that are either vehicle bound or whatever that is, to make sure that we can accommodate those people as well. I think our first priority is to get capacity to serve the majority of the community. And after we have that, we can specify more, I would say niche, but more specific community members that would need placement.
So Tim, the current capacity, is it still with the group homes that you've been working with roughly 20 to 24 spaces?
So yeah, right now we have 21 isolation or quarantine spaces that we're working with adult family homes. They've been very gracious. We've been looking at a case-by-case approach to see if we can place people. Accept people with minor to medium behavioral mental challenges. Some substance abuse issues are also accepted, especially if they're working with our treatment services. Right now, we have 21 spaces available and 4 quarantine spaces. However, we're working with St. Vincent de Paul to work with a hotel that's just for quarantine, and there are some entries to barriers to entry due to it being a hotel, and there's no necessarily oversight from our staff. So that is slightly more difficult, and there's some other requirements as well. But we have that in place. We are also working with RII for people that are in immediate need, that are in active psychosis or have different issues which would screen out of every isolation and quarantine capacity that we have or potentially will have. And they have been great as well. They've been taking our people. The moment the crisis is over, we can then either transport them to another facility and make that work.
So I see Maureen has her hand up, and then there is one question from Teresa in the chat as well. You're muted right now, Maureen.
Got it. Thank you. Tim, thanks for coming and updating us. So my question is, how do we get through the long weekend? My understanding is that like if a shelter has somebody who's tested positive, that the shelter has to call the multi-care number, which is not a 24/7 number, but will it be available every day for a certain number of hours?
Yes, so the number is available from 8 a.m. to 4:30 every day, 7 days a week. And they will refer to our INQ leads, and they will then do placement. So if a call were to come in outside of time, the request is to keep the individual until we can place them the day after.
But we can't keep the individual who's tested positive in a shelter without exposing everybody else in that shelter.
Correct. We have been trying to work with the shelters to provide them, or work with them to provide some sort of solution that we can either quarantine or isolate at the shelter for a limited period of time. However, we have been rebuffed, and so I'm not sure what the solution is there.
So how can the coalition help you in your role with the health department come to a solution that
That's a very good question.
does not further expose people who are homeless, experiencing homelessness, or people who are staffing the shelters. But what
I
can we?
think a great solution would be, and if we could work with you and also with the shelters, if we can provide the shelters with a means of either setting up a tent or within the shelter location, or providing them with pipe and drape or whatever that is, to say, okay, hey, we have a person that is either symptomatic, test antigen negative, waiting for PCR, we can quarantine them either there, or right, if they test positive or they're symptomatic and with possible exposure without being tested, that we could keep them at the shelter location for a very limited amount of time and then potentially organize transport the day after. That would be, I think, the best solution. But talks have been had, and sadly that has never come to fruition.
Well, my understanding is shelters don't have space to both provide the shelter they're doing and set up a quarantine and isolation center. So, I mean, there's money. Money isn't the issue here. There's money. So you know, okay, enough time. Sorry, I'm just
that makes
up
sense.
to here
Great.
with the fact we can't, as a community, respond.
I would love to also take this discussion offline with you, Maureen. I think we can come to a solution there.
The question that was in the chat from Teresa is regarding how many spaces are currently available.
Let me check.
And then Mike, I see you have your hand up as well while Tim is checking.
So we have 5 places available as of now, and then we have the quarantine-only beds available for St. Vincent de Paul. So 5 isolation beds, but I cannot speak to that, how long that is, because they tend to fill up really quick.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, Tim, I hear what you're saying. I may have missed some of the meetings that you were talking about, but I would highly suggest that you get the shelter managers together. I don't think we can take the Tuesday meeting, but initiate a meeting between all of us and let's talk about this, because Maureen's right. I don't have space here. I can put them out on the street. I can put them out in the alley under a tent, but it's kind of getting worse in the shelter. So I'll just leave it at that.
So Tim, I want to say, I appreciate you coming today. I knew this was going to be kind of a tough conversation. So I do also see Valerie in the chat offering the Tuesday meeting as a opportunity to have that discussion. So I know that doesn't address this weekend though. So I think that's a major concern.
Yes. All I could say is, I mean, we're working on it. There is I have to do this politically correct, obviously. So there's some question is, where do we come in? Where is it the city? Where is it the county? And where is the rub, right? So this is, especially when it comes to shelters, there's a lot of gray area. And where do we touch and where do we connect, and where does the responsibility lie? And that probably adds to the confusion to the problem. Who takes responsibility? And that makes it, yeah, as I said, even more difficult and more problematic in that sense. I assume you're all aware, we are not the county. The county and the health department are different entities. So yes, we are the health department, that is correct, but we are not the county. So there's a disconnect there.
All right, Tim, thank you.
Disconnect, Tim. We've met many times, and we meet, our leadership and your leadership meet consistently and have been for 18 months. So we've been meeting since March 2020 with all the different shelter providers and the health department, and we've been a great partner, and y'all have done amazing. But I think there just has to be that switch, because I don't know if you've ever been in a shelter, but there's nowhere to put. So for example, TRM doesn't have a space where you can create a bathroom situation when there's only 2 bathrooms for everybody. And so that's an ongoing conversation that has been consistently had for about 18 months, right? Like we're all kind of living in, what's that movie? Groundhog Day. And so
Yeah.
I don't know that I would agree as the county employee with that statement. And so just so everybody, because this group's all aware of all the work we have done, we have put to, Tuesday and Thursday meetings for shelter providers. We connect health departments. I work with Jenny on a daily basis to set up immunizations for COVID vaccines, as well as testing throughout all of the shelters throughout Pierce County, as well as into the encampments. That's all stuff the county has helped facilitate with the health department as a step-by-step partner. So I think there's more work to absolutely be done. I think there is a lot of confusion on whose responsibility this is, because I don't know that it's fair to say a $13 an hour employee at a shelter who took a job to run a homeless shelter should also be responsible for COVID. So that's my own personal. Valerie has been on break for the last 2 minutes. So that is me, bad Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie. I see a lot of clapping. So what I know this is a tough issue. We're not going to be able to solve it today, and it's going to take more work over the weekend and next week. But I thought it was important that we all know what the status is going into the weekend, even though none of us like it and all of us feel uncomfortable about it. So thank you for that. And thank you again, Tim, for showing up. Hopefully we don't scare you away. So let's transition into the next part of the meeting, and that would be our regular government updates. I saw Jeff Rogers on the call earlier. Jeff, are you still here and able to do a county update for us?
Yes, I'm here, as well as Valerie, who may have an update on the rental assistance program. Do you want to go first, Valerie? Do you have an update?
Yeah, so I'll go just real quick. So the Pierce County Rental Assistance Program is still going well. You may have seen us on Q13 last week, and we are going to be on King 5 News today, which makes me super anxious, but that's okay. So as of today, so this program started in March. As of today, we have gotten out $41 million into the hands of landlords and utility companies. That does not include the City of Tacoma funds. So as you may be aware, the city has their own bucket of money, but they go through our portal. We support their provider. Really, really amazing, great relationship we have with the city, and we're super thankful for all of their support and trusting us in this process so that we prevent duplication. So $41 million out. As of right now, our average is $8,696 per household. That's an average. I've seen some checks as much as $25,000. So just to kind of break it down, that is a lot. 9,235 of the households have already been referred to providers of the 14,000 applicants that we have. So those are all being processed, have already been paid. And so we are just working through as much as we can. So to the percentages, I'll answer that question. Hold on a second, right? So for the Department of Transportation, Department of Treasury, I will forever do that. We are at 70.83% spent of our entire budget. For the American Rescue Plan funds, we're already at 2% spent, and that contract was signed on Monday. So that will go very quickly. And then TRAP, we are at 51.05% now, because on Friday, we added $10 million more dollars to that bucket. So that will, that includes the new 10 million. So all of that is going out the door as quickly as we can. Just a real public shout out to our 9 amazing nonprofits who work, I can't even tell you, like round the clock, just doing some amazing hard things, as well as in our internal City of Tacoma, our communications department, our IT department, our fiscal department are just dedicated. And so this is not, I may be the face, but it is absolutely a large team that gets this done. So Maureen, to answer your question, the City of Tacoma rental assistance dollars, they're not included in our dashboard yet, but they are going to be soon. We are finalizing how to get their report built into our uploads. We do send them data, so they're working on how to get that back to us. So lots of conversations going back and forth just to make sure that we have that data in our portal as well. So yeah, we're still working to make that better. And that's all I have, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Good work. The only other update we have is that the HUD at a national level has released their annual notice of funding opportunity. There's billions of dollars across the country that are available. Pierce County will be applying for those funds as the collaborative applicant on behalf of the Tacoma Lakewood Pierce County Continuum of Care. Our annual renewal demand amount is just spread around $3.96 million. There is the opportunity for a domestic violence bonus project that's roughly $725,000 available. And then any other new bonus projects that are around $225,000. So we're just around possibility of receiving $5 million to that project that we're eligible to apply for. Could be more, could be less, depends on them. Applications are due to HUD November 6th. So you have to look out that we'll be releasing local NOFO for agencies in the community to apply to provide housing through this funding very, very soon. Within days, our hope is to release that so that we can move forward with the process, provide agencies the opportunity to apply to receive continuum of care funding. Those funds typically fund permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless, rapid rehousing, and also it could fund a joint transitional rapid rehousing project, as well as a service-only coordinated entry opportunity. And of course, it funds HMIS, and the county's the one that manages that. So any funds for HMIS would come directly to the county. So you can expect that notice out soon.
Can I add something to yours, Jeff? Because I'm going to do a plug.
Yeah.
There are $700,000 for domestic violence projects in this application that we're eligible for. So we need domestic violence partners to come in as new applicants for rapid rehousing projects. So just know that is additional bonus dollars. And if we don't have it, we can't submit it. So just a plug for any DV providers, please, please, please read the NOFA and consider submitting an application. And then Jeff, you have a question in the chat box. It says the status of Department of Transportation project.
I didn't understand you, Valerie. Say that again.
Maureen would like an update on the status of the Department of Transportation project.
Okay, what I can tell you about the Department of Transportation is that there's some new highway coming in. I guess you call it a highway, freeway. I don't know what you call it here in Washington. I'm from back east. They're extending Highway 167 from over in Puyallup, where it ends, all the way over to Highway 509 here in Tacoma. If you're familiar with 509 area there, starting next year, that work will begin. There are quite a few homeless encampments between that 509 connector all the way over to Highway 167. The initial work will begin at Highway 509, the western part of this project they're doing, and then work its way east over towards the Puyallup connector of Highway 167. So we'll start and work its way through Tacoma, Fife, and then out into the unincorporated area of the county out that way. We're in conversation with the Department of Transportation. They're pretty good at what they do. I'm impressed with the Department of Transportation. There's a few other people on this call that are also involved in those conversations regarding how do we address encampments within those areas. City of Tacoma, City of Fife, City of Puyallup, Pierce County are all engaged in the conversation and working with the Department of Transportation to make sure that we're working to remove those encampments so that when the contractors come in and start creating the road, there's no issues with people within that area. So a lot more to come. I've been in 2 meetings already with them where they've identified these encampment areas, and they're very sensitive to the needs of homeless. They're, in my opinion, from what I've heard from them and seen them do, they're very compassionate when they go in and do this type of work around new construction of roads, and they really want to work collaboratively with all the cities and towns and the jurisdictions that this will impact to make sure that we've got a great plan in place of how we're going to work to remove those encampments so that they can construct the road. And I believe that's the project you're talking about, Maureen, because that's the only project I'm aware of with the Department of Transportation. We can share more with you as we get it, but it's just in the very preliminary stages. And we were appreciative that they're starting now for projects that won't start for like till sometime in mid next year. So they're ahead of the game. They want to have the conversations. They want to identify the partners and create a plan of action that will be effective and successful and not have a severe impact on the homeless who are encamped in those encampments.
Thank you for that update, Jeff. All right, so you may have noticed in the chat, I had a communication from Tegan at the City of Tacoma. She's actually off work today and was unable to attend the meeting, so we don't have a City of Tacoma update. However, there's plenty that the coalition members would be interested in that has taken place at city meetings this week. City Council study session had an update from the Neighborhood and Community Services Department regarding homelessness plans, the South 69th and Proctor site, and other discussions. There also has been a lot of discussion regarding the ordinance that would effectively provide a ban on public camping. I will leave the update on that. I think Maureen wanted to talk about that during the advocacy update. Is that correct, Maureen?
Sure.
Okay. So I won't get into that now, but I did drop the presentation from Tuesday's study session into the chat, and the video from the study session is also available on the city's website. I will drop that link in the chat while others are talking. So that would be our update from the City of Tacoma. Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, are there any additional updates other than the conversation we had earlier about isolation and quarantine?
Not that I can relay right now.
Thank you, James, and thank you for joining us for the first time this morning as well.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and I don't believe I've seen anybody from the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on the call. If there is, I'll be silent for a second here just to see if there's any update. Okay, not hearing any. So let's shift over to advocacy updates, Maureen. And I hate to cut you short, but if we can make them quicker rather than longer, that would be great for our agenda.
Indeed. Thank you very much, everybody. Quicker rather than longer. At the federal level, just watch, see what Congress is doing or not doing. The United States Interagency Council has got a survey out on what would make federal government action better on ending homelessness and responding to homelessness. I sent it out August 28th to the list, or 4th, August 24th to the listserv. It's a quick survey that you can respond to. At the state level, we should know that we have whether or not the Comfort Inn Lehigh's project got funded out of the state's Rapid Capital Housing Acquisition Fund next week. If that happens, if they got funded, that'll free up 10 or 12 million that the City of Tacoma, Pierce County, and City of Lakewood have already committed. So that'll make money available for acquisition of something else. Locally, all right. The no camping ordinance came up as it was supposed to. If you saw the agenda, that was the original ordinance, not the one that we agreed on, or the most current draft. We haven't agreed to anything, coalition, except to meet, all right? That ordinance now comes back to the council for a first reading on November 16th. So it's not next on our must-do list. It's not unimportant, it's just not next. One of the things was Tidy Up Tacoma, which is a big program citywide to remove graffiti, to pick up litter, and to do minor landscaping. And they're working through the business districts and the avenues that are the key avenues coming into Tacoma. So I think we might talk about that in the steering committee. about, is there a way for us to help encampments in any way? Nothing else, get the garbage bags. So with respect to, maybe this was earlier, I came in late, but the gentleman in Sumner who was asked to move his truck in which he was living, did meet with Tristia Bauman from the National Homelessness Law Center. Tristia has drafted a letter on his behalf to the city of Sumner. She will share that letter with the National Coalition for the Homeless and with us. And we will sign off after the steering committee looks at it Wednesday. We expect to have the letter Tuesday, and we will sign off on that letter, consistent with our commitment to making sure that the state and federal laws are followed. The rest of the things on my list are, folks, we got to start preparing for winter before winter comes. All right, wherever people are, we've got to get that going. And my suggestion is we get it going with the departments of emergency management. As near as I can tell, it's actually their job. The housing committee, our housing committee will meet Thursday, the 9th at 4 o'clock. If you are not on the listserv to get the information, please join that, because housing is moving faster than I ever imagined. The county presented the Pierce County Affordable Housing Work Group report, and it's a good report, and it has a lot in it that we can use, including expanding the homelessness page. We also had an opportunity, some of us, to participate in a webinar, which we will make publicly available, on the housing precarity risk model, i.e. where in a community on a census tract basis is there most risk for eviction, i.e. most, finally, homelessness. And we had about a dozen elected officials or their representatives from the state, the Speaker of the House, state of Washington, on to local electeds on that call. And there are specific policy recommendations out of that. That's my list.
That's a lot, as always. That's a lot, as always. So if you don't already subscribe to the Coalition listserv, that can also be found on the pchomeless.org website. Maureen does share a lot of this information in the emails that go to the listserv as well. So that's a good way to track that and find out where you can get involved in advocacy. So let's shift gears over to Colin DeForest and Jan Rumbach for a short update about Safe Sites for All.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Okay, I knew you would say that. A lot of the energy and effort, at least for my part, has been on this trying to create this isolation site. And as you've heard, unfortunately, we came up short on that, which is extremely disappointing, because I definitely think, along with Safe Sites for All, it's creating a safe community for all. And without a site like that, we truly do not have a safe community for all. So that's extremely disappointing, but hopefully we can figure something. We're going to have to figure something out. So hopefully the powers that be figure something out that works for that population. As far as safe parking goes, things are going well. Lots of referrals this week. I actually am going to get off this and get a hold of TUUC leadership. I have a family that just showed up from New Mexico, 6 kids, 2 parents living in a vehicle, completely clueless on any services. So I will be reaching out. Hopefully they have 2 vehicles. The guy has an interview already. Very motivated, but very scared and lost in Tacoma. So great example of what the safe parking network can be in theory, is give them that safe landing spot, hopefully for a very short period of time while they find something more permanent like housing. Other sites are doing great. As always, a lot of great things going on in South Hill Baptist. We're maxed out. We're pretty much at max capacity across the board. I got to check with the Rise Center to see if they have any openings. But things are going well. We probably have about 2 months left of funding. I have to follow up with Garrett. He reached out. I know the county's kind of nosing around. I got a I don't know if I said it earlier. I had an email from a county council member this morning, and then John Barbie CC'd me on it, over concerns around RV parking. I think we're really seeing the gap when it comes to safe sites for all with RVs. So that seems to be a big concern, but I'm really hoping that the county and the city and the government entities will be taking a hard look at the safe parking network and trying to figure out some sort of iteration of it that could be funding moving forward. I think we can squeeze maybe 2 more months out of the existing funding, which is absolutely amazing. We've gone 1.5 years with almost 2 years with $150,000. So when we look at bang for buck, it's absolutely amazing. And I really hope that this becomes a staple of our, continuum of services and interventions that we have in Pierce County, because just like that family of 6, without this program, they have nowhere to go. Right. Yeah, that's pretty much what all that I have. I don't know if anybody else has anything else.
One thing, just in terms of safe parking, Colin, I'm not sure if you've seen the page from the shelter work group and the initial thinking from the county, but clearly they are thinking about safe parking, because their initial idea is distributed sites that serve roughly 350 people living in their vehicles. So that would be a serious scaling up of what we've been doing.
That's great. I don't think we need that much, but that's the great thing about safe parking. If you don't use it, you know what you have: parking spots or space. So it doesn't really, you're not losing money. It's not a deficit. And I hope that my program has shown, or this program has shown, that you really don't need a whole lot of staffing, right? It's amazing what a good site host can do, and amazing what happens when you get out of somebody's way and kind of just let them do their thing. So I am excited about that. I would also say, just to the point, and there'll probably be something more about it, but to the point Jeff made, I actually just signed a contract with WASDOT. So I'm going to be their homeless response manager for all of their gateway projects. So I will be coordinating with the government entities on this call, with Fife, with Puyallup, with the others around figuring out how to safely and humanely move these individuals that are on that WASDOT property. And there's a lot of them. So I'm excited about that work, and I'll definitely be partnering and bringing information to the coalition as we move forward with that. So, yeah.
Mike, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, Colin, question I have is, you said most of your sites are at capacity or full. So is there a thought in the horizon of sites?
Yeah, I mean, we could totally expand. There's multiple churches that are interested. There's churches in the Key Pen that are interested. We just simply don't have the capacity, and I want these programs to go as long as they can. So that's 3 is just a number that has worked for us. So there definitely are other churches that are interested.
Okay.
And I think moving forward, those churches, many of them are on these calls. So yeah, and I think that those reach outs continue to grow. I think our only challenges are from the jurisdictional perspective.
Right.
It's no coincidence that the ones that we have are in Pierce County and the city of Tacoma, but because both Pierce County and the city of Tacoma were willing to give us the grace to try out House Bill 1754 and really use that as our guiding kind of code and guidance. And I think it's worked out well in comparison to someone like Puyallup, who has done everything they can to not allow us to use 1754 and to keep safe parking out of their site. They've shut down 2 sites that we tried to set up. So outside of the jurisdictional thing, I think there's a lot of church or places, and I don't think it has to be churches, that are very interested.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a lot of good news, Colin, and congratulations. There's a lot of congratulations in the chat for you. All right, so let's shift over to coalition committee updates. Do we have any updates from committees that have been meeting this week that should be shared with the full coalition? And if we don't, that's fine. I just wanted to offer the opportunity. Okay. So let's open it up to Actually, let me give a quick update on our agenda. We are changing the end of the meeting for today's meeting. We originally had scheduled to have Megan Capes join us to offer kind of a Labor Day acknowledgement. Megan wasn't feeling well, so she can't join us today. So if you notice we don't do that, that is why. But we can certainly do that in our announcements section that we will start now. So kind of, what are some good announcements that people in the full coalition would benefit from hearing? If anybody has anything, feel free to raise your hand. Jeffrey.
Just read this morning, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has answered the call in LA over the elimination of and sweeping camps down there. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has said you cannot take even the big items and eliminate them in the presence of the owner, and that those are all parts of their home. So that just came out yesterday. That just happened yesterday. Heard about it this morning. But that's one I wanted to pass on.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Rosemary?
I just wanted to say, I wish we'd been able to have Megan come, because one of the things I was thinking about in my original comments at the beginning of the meeting is honoring the labor of the people who are struggling to survive. But it's also important, and I think Megan might have addressed this if she had been feeling better, is what in the world do we think we're going to be able to solve a housing problem when we don't have wages for people who are laborers who can afford any place to be? And so the connection between raising wages, taxing really rich landowners and speculators, and the ability to provide the housing that people can have to be meeting their dreams and keeping their communities safe has got to be something that the intersections of which we are thinking about all the time. We can, as some people said in the past, we can case manage the hell out of a situation, but if there's no housing and no jobs that pay enough money to rent the housing or buy the housing, we can't do much at all. So that's frustrating in its essence, but it's a hopeful sign for Labor Day to celebrate the importance of making those things come together.
Thank you, Rosemary. Anyone else with good of the order announcements?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Julian.
I always say humorously, oh, that's too bad. Just want to invite people to our next Pierce County Accessible Community Advisory Committee regular session on Tuesday, September 14, 9 o'clock on Zoom. And as I say that, I'm always reminded to say that we will continue using Zoom for the purposes of accessibility. And in turn, I want to thank the coalition for continuing to provide this convenience of attending on Zoom. Please keep doing it, or at least provide remote attendance capability should in-person attendance become possible again. This coming Labor Day, I just wanted to remind people about some concept I've learned in the mostly youthful stand-up community, which is it's how your humor could be classified as either punching up or punching down. Punching up is when you afflict the comfortable, and then punching down is when you make fun of the marginalized. The Labor Day to me represents a time when people together punched up to get greater, I guess what's the word, a greater equity and equality, and how that's never given away, it's always fought for. Anyway, I did want to provide another announcement. This is not ACAC related, but it is Pierce County related. And in case anyone's interested, Pierce County Elections is going to hold election observer trainings for volunteer observers on Wednesday, October 6th, 10 a.m. or 2 p.m., which is trainees' choice. And I think we all understand just how important it is to have a vigorous election observer program. And of course, there are 3 observer groups: Democratic, Republican, and Independent. So give it some thought. You could contact me about that too. I could get your name over to the right people. But Rob, thank you for doing this again. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Julian. Jeffrey?
For the good of the order, the church in Bellingham, St. Paul's Women's, came up with this idea for the homeless to keep their papers and their ID in, and they can keep it around their neck so that they don't lose it. This has gone very well, very popular in the north end, north of Seattle. And I do have some available, and we'll have more available if the outreach people talk to our unsheltered people. And they are just handing them out. So many times we hear about ID being lost, wallet stolen, purses stolen. This provides a way to keep it around their body and out of the hands of other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And Sheila, I see your hand up.
Jeffrey, what are the chances of getting a lot of them for the Project Homeless Connect on the 17th?
Good. I have 15 of them right now, and I can get a whole bunch more. They are.
That would be incredible. Can I get your contact information? You would just have to drop those off at Associated Ministries, and I'll let them know if I can get your contact information. Thank you.
Not a problem. I will put that in the chat.
Thank you. And Maureen, your hand is up.
That's right, because the hopeful thing I didn't think about that everybody should know is, you know, those $50 cash cards that we're using our grant money for people experiencing homelessness at the point of vaccination. So Tricia Munson with Greater Lakes Path Team, that team works with a mobile international team of some sort who actually they're the medical folks who do the vaccinations. And Tricia took 20 from Jan early this week, and 13 folks were vaccinated at encampments in Lakewood, which is like a high point in terms of numbers. And Tricia was really pleased, and so are we. So, yeah.
Excellent. So I think that's a good note to wrap up the good of the order announcements on. We do have a couple minutes left in today's meeting time to offer folks an opportunity to reflect on the meeting. If you would like to share either in live on screen or in the chat, what things went well, what didn't go well, what was missing today. If you want to drop that in the chat or raise your hand now and offer some comments, we'd love to hear, because we want to keep making these meetings better. Okay, the chat is always open for folks, so so please use it if you have some feedback for us. And there are still 43 of us in the room. I do want to make one more quick announcement, and that is, how would you like to be a host for the coalition meetings on Fridays? It doesn't need to be me running these meetings all the time. We do have a couple of other folks who have expressed an interest in particular, like Dwayne Parker has actually hosted the meeting before. We'd like to add some people to the rotation. So if you would like to serve as a host for one of these Friday meetings, go ahead and drop your information in the chat, and we'll reach back out, and we'd love to have you. Rosemary?
I would add to that, the welcome message at the beginning is certainly something that many of you could do very well. And I am doing it because I don't organize myself well enough to make sure other people are available to do it. So if this is something that you'd like to do to have a brief inspiration or just a welcome and introduce folks to the rules of our engagement together, then please reach out to me or to Rob, and we'd love to have this rotated as well.
And I see Sheila's post in there. Monique, you got to watch out. People volunteer you for everything. The good thing about a volunteer group like the coalition is you can't really be voluntold to do anything. So. Cece, I see that, and I will be in touch with you. And I just want to say, so we are at the top of the hour, a couple minutes away from it. Thank you again, everybody, for being here for the conversation this morning. And I hope everybody has a good, safe weekend. Enjoy the sunshine while we've got it. And we'll see everybody again next week. If you want to help plan for the upcoming meetings, you can stay on this call. After a short break, we will have a group of us meeting to figure out what we can put on our agenda for the next couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.